Now, the Subway Final Word.
Welcome back to the Golden Globe award-winning show. I'm Albie Oxenreiter with tonight's panelist.
Is that right?
Yes.
Stag told me that's right. So
I want more money.
Rob Rossi, John Staggerwald, and Mark Madden are here tonight. Continuing with the resignation of Dick LeBeau. Was he given the right players to succeed in the last few seasons? Stag, you go first this time.
Well, I think the answer is no, unless you're saying that the players were good and the coaching stunk. I think it's the other way around. I don't know about the players stunk, but they weren't good enough. And I think it has to go back to the players who were drafted. And as Rob said, you know, you heard all through Dick LeBeau's tenure here that it takes a long time to learn the defense. Well, you're supposed to draft guys who were smart enough to learn it and pick up on it, and you're supposed to, knowing what kind of a defense you play, which has been the most successful defense in the league probably over a 15-year period. If you have that kind of a defense, then as a personnel department, don't you have to keep that in mind and keep the turnover working, timed out, so that when the older players get too old, that you have young players behind them, and you do that by drafting players who you think are going to be good enough to learn the system in a couple of years while the older players are playing it, and that's a personnel decision, not a coaching decision.
All right, more from Twitter. This one from Howie Legend Bell. Can't blame LeBeau as the players he was given, especially in the secondary, were below par. Ike should have retired years ago. Rob, some have said you can't win the Derby with a plow horse. Is that correct?
Yeah, but they probably had a lot of horses they should have put to sleep a long time ago, and that's probably because they didn't, for the reason that they couldn't bring guys in to figure out this defense. When you keep holding on to veterans, specifically because they fit the 3-4 zone blitz scheme, and now you're looking at 4 of those veterans departing, it only makes sense to get rid of the coordinator too.
All right. Mark, what do you think?
Well, that tweeter, Howie, whatever that potato peeler's name was, he talks about Ike Taylor should have been gone years ago. Dick LeBeau didn't want Ike Taylor gone years ago. Dick LeBeau wanted these veterans to stay and stay and stay because, like Rossi said, they knew how to play the defense. As far as LeBeau and the working parts he had this year, he made chicken salad out of chicken scratch. He did a marvelous job. It was one of his best coaching jobs ever given personnel. But that's nothing to do with the reason this change was made.
Well, is it possible, though, that the reason he wanted to stick with Ike Taylor and these other guys as they got into their late 30s is because the young guys he was given, he looked at them, he watched them in practice, he talked to them in meetings, he tested them on their knowledge of the defense, and they failed. Is that his fault?
Is it maybe just possible they didn't get enough opportunity?
Oh, maybe.
All right, we'll stay with the Steelers' defense for tonight's third topic. Should the Steelers stay with the 3-4 defense, or is it time to switch to a 4-3, and why? Stag, back to you to start this one off.
You know, that's probably a little bit above my pay grade. They've been pretty successful with a 3-4 going back 20 years at least, 25 years. Again, it comes down to personnel. That's a decision that Mike Tomlin is going to have to make. Based on his personnel, and one of the biggest factors in the success or failure of a head coach is his ability to pick coordinators. And Mike Tomlin inherited Dick LeBeau. He's going to have to hire somebody now. Good test for him.
All right, thank you, Stag. More from Twitter on the topic. Leslie tweets, personnel should dictate D formation. Steelers thin at outside linebacker with scant prospects in free agency or draft. 4-3 for me. Mark, 3-4, 4-3, is it time?
Well, I love how this potato peeler has said the Steelers have scant prospects in the draft. He's doped out the whole draft. No sense in having a draft now. They're not going to get anybody, right, buddy? The only reason a 4-3 intrigues me is because Jones, Shazier, and Timmons, given their quickness, would make an interesting combination in a 4-3. However, we haven't seen too much from Jarvis Jones yet.
All right, Rob.
Well, look, they went 11-5 and won a division with a defense that wasn't very good. So why wouldn't they at least consider going to a 4-3, asking the offense to get through the season again? And also, Mike Tomlin's background is in cover 2, 4-3 defense. I think it's time to give the head coach, who's been here almost a decade, a chance to run the defense that he was brought here to run.
All right, switching to the Penguins, our fourth topic tonight. Penguins goalie Marc-Andre Fleury did not make the All-Star team. Does he deserve more respect outside of Pittsburgh, and does it even matter? Rob?
It does matter because, you know, you'd like to be remembered for what you've done, and Marc-Andre Fleury's been the winningest goalie in the league since he entered it 12 years ago. That said, Marc-Andre Fleury is going to be judged, as will Sidney Crosby and Evgeny Malkin, by whether or not they can win that Stanley Cup again. And that's probably something that he's going to have to live with until that happens. That said, you shouldn't even think about watching an all-star game that doesn't have Marc-Andre Fleury, because not only is he one of the most entertaining goalies in hockey and made for that type of game, he's also one of the best goalies in hockey. And to have that game without him is an absolute farce. It's laughable. It's a joke. It's a travesty. It's an all-star game. Who cares anyway?
All right. A tweet suggests it doesn't matter. Just keep winning, Flower. Make them come around. Stag, is there a lack of respect for Fleury outside of Pittsburgh? And if so, does it really matter?
Well, I think that's if it's based on whether if the amount of respect you have is determined by whether or not you make the All-Star team, it's a self-answering question. Obviously, he's not getting respect. That's why he's not on the All-Star team. Does he deserve more? I think he does. We see him every game. I mean, we have an opportunity to see every game that he plays. I think that people in Pittsburgh are finally starting to respect him a little bit more this year because of the way he's played in the regular season. But I think the first soft goal he lets through in May, they'll be all over him again. So I think he hasn't even earned the respect of the fans in Pittsburgh totally yet, and that's because of playoff performances that were not all that good, but I don't think in any way all his fault.
Mark, finish up the topic.
I would not watch the NHL All-Star Game if the Marc-Andre Fleury triplets were rotating in goal for the Eastern Conference. It's a sham of a game, an absolute joke. No check men's league hockey played with better players. As far as Fleury getting respect, that's measured in Stanley Cups. That's measured in wins, which Marc-Andre Fleury does as good as anybody, like Rossi said, dating back through his entire career. The All-Star Game did Fleury a favor. He gets to spend a weekend home with his lovely wife and his kid. Enjoy the weekend, Mark. You're better off.
All right, Mark and John and Rob, thank you. This is the Subway Final Word. When we come back, everybody gets the final word, so stay with us.